trying to urge everybody to quit being selfish and get the vaccine. You don't get the vaccine for yourself. You get it for the people around you. I hear a lot of I and me, like I don't want to do this, me, I'm only concerned about me, but that's not the way the world works. I got the vaccine so I can go around other people. And it's really unfortunate that we have to beg people to get the vaccine. I mean, who don't want to live?
So first things first, I want to give a shout out to Charles Barkley for doing what he thinks is the right thing to do, getting active in the community, giving back, trying to help people get back to some semblance of normalcy, as well as getting their lives back, protecting the community. Just giving of his time and his energy and his resources, and using his platform to get out what he feels to be a positive message. So I definitely want to praise him for that, because it's not a bad thing that he's doing. Now, I personally feel as though there's a lot of propaganda going on, and he may be unwittingly, or giving them the benefit of the doubt, unwittingly being part of said propaganda. But again, it's all for what he believes to be a good cause. Now, my response back to it, because again, I do have a difference of opinion as it pertains to what he just said, and that is, it's being selfish, that you're not doing it. That's just one of the points, that you're being selfish, one of the many, that you're being selfish. You're not doing this for you, but you're doing this for other people. That's somewhat of a lie, because fact of the matter is, and I did a video on this, go ahead and check it out on the CDC link, but at this point it may be considered old news. But the fact of the matter is, many studies are showing, especially with this Delta variant being the most dominant of variants or strains going out there around the world, is that the viral load in those who do get jabbed is exactly the same as those who do not get jabbed. So you can still get it. There's no magic force field or shield protecting you from getting it. You can still get it with the same level of viral load in your system as if you didn't have the jab. And that also meant that you can also transmit the virus all of the same as well to other people. The idea, though, is that it wouldn't be as long, but all I would do is point you over to what's happening in Israel right now. By far the most vaccinated country in all of the world, with well over 80 or 81% of their population what was previously considered to be fully vaccinated, at least 2 jabs of the vaccine, or what, approved vaccine that there was floating around at that time. And still to this point, now they consider 3 jabs to be fully vaccinated, because the vaccine seems to wear off. But I digress. What I was getting at is that Israel is seeing the highest case number of COVID cases that they've ever seen at any point in time during the entirety of the pandemic. That includes this time last year and even into the fall and winter of 2020, way before there was even any proven courses of treatment, any vaccines that can help treat the individuals and or provide any preventative measures. And so they're well over 81% vaccinated, or at least double jabbed of the vaccine, and they're still seeing the highest rate of transmission and or number of cases that they've ever seen. So the idea that getting this will somehow prevent you from spreading it to others, or you yourself getting it and or putting others at risk, is a lie. That's just not true based upon what we know right now. And we even have cases here in the US, where I believe in a county in Massachusetts, where over 75% of all hospitalizations were that of those who were jabbed. So the idea that it's not being spread amongst those who are jabbed, and or that you cannot get severe symptoms, is no longer really the case. It really needs to be now a focus on your actual physical health and or conditioning, because truth of the matter is, the overwhelming majority of those who are succumbing to the more severe cases of the virus, whether you were jabbed or not, are those who are either overweight, not athletically overweight, but just overweight, obese, which are 2 different things, by the way, those with other pre-existing conditions like MS, multiple sclerosis, COPD, type 2 diabetes, name the gamut. And so That's the biggest thing that we really need to focus on. But that's the first thing he said, do it for others. And again, that no longer seems to be the case. Those who are jabbed seems to still be able to not only get the virus, but spread it amongst others all of the same. That's the idea. That's number one. Number two is, don't you want to return to some sense of normalcy? My thing is that you should not rely on the government to give you the freedom to go around other people, to go without a mask and or enter into a restaurant and feel okay. I do it all the time here in Texas. And I don't feel at all worried. In fact, I just went into a Walmart this morning and was able to go in, take my, didn't have my mask on for the majority of the time. I think I went in with it on, but then took it off because it's just recommended right now. It is not required. I went to one of our, what is known as a First Friday pub run last night. Not at any single incident did I have a mask on as I'm going from one establishment to the next, in mass of a large crowds of people. You are free. Being free is your birthright. To wait on the state or government to give you your freedom is like a slave mentality. To me, you should be able to stand up. You should not have to wait for the government. In fact, you can only get them off of your back when you do finally stand up. Why are so many people willing to bend the knee to the state when they should be able to grasp their freedoms for themselves? Because last I recall as well, the state actors were public servants, not the other way around. They that are there to represent you, to serve you, not dictate to you. So if you want, point number two is, if you want your freedoms, you want to be able to live life the way you want, go out there and do it yourself. Don't wait on the government to do so, and stop living in so much fear. But if you are afraid, then take the necessary precautions yourself, because we've already established the fact that the jab does not prevent you from getting it and or spreading it. So if you're one of those people who are afraid that you yourself are at a greater risk of succumbing to some of the worst symptoms of the virus, you get jabbed and you get that added protection. All right, point number three, do you want to live? Who doesn't want to live? Last I recall, you shouldn't really be making an argument about wanting to live with something that has a 99.99997% survival rate. That's a lot of nines after the decimal point. And it does vary depending on your age group as well. The younger you are, the higher the survival rate. It's like 1/1,000,000th of a 1% fatality rate, if that, when you're 19 and under. When you're under the age of 50, it's still extremely high. Again, you're talking about a 99.99998% survival rate if you're between the ages of 20 and 49. And then let's not forget about within that same age group of, for the most part, we don't know that much about infants. So I'll keep it with mostly older kids between the ages of 5, and then grown adults between the ages up to the age of 49. Every study of tests, random sampling of blood samples taken throughout this pandemic has shown that the overwhelming majority of young people under the age of 49, even though you're pretty much midlife at that point, but people under the age of 50, overwhelmingly, when they do get the virus, they don't even know it. They're asymptomatic as much as 88%. So you're talking about a virus where, on average, so long as you don't have any serious pre-existing condition like being overweight, obese, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, COPD, then you are highly likely, you're part of the 88%, the norm, of having no symptoms whatsoever, not even knowing that you have it. And then the next highest percentage, which is about 6 or 7%, symptoms being extremely mild at best. Maybe a little cough here, loss of taste, loss of smell there, a little weak, maybe a slight fever. But life goes on, you barely even know you're sick, or it's a bad cold. That's the next least likely scenario. And then the next scenario after that would be more moderate, where you're more so down and out, but not to the extent where you need to go to the hospital. Because the whole point was to not overwhelm the hospitals, right? You can be down and out at home fighting it like you normally would with the flu, and then just recover in a couple of weeks. That's the idea, right? So, okay, that's still not deadly. 1% chance is the next likely scenario that you will require hospitalization of for people of that age group under 50, right? And every demographic, every study shows that while those in their 20s and 30s represent the overwhelming majority of test positive cases, and keep in mind there's a big difference between testing positive at a CVS or Walgreens site versus being in a hospital. Two different things, but they try to conflate the two. But again, 20s and 30s, overwhelming majority of people who just so happen to test positive when they do get tested, and yet those who are succumbing are overwhelmingly those in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, with those in their 50s also representing a high percentage as well, but it gets dramatically higher when of those in their 60s, 70s. That shows me that the hospitalization rate is largely those who, again, if they're not obese and are overweight, they're elderly. So again, this is not a virus for the overwhelming population that is that deadly. It kills, it can be deadly, but it's the least likely scenario for people under the age of 50. That's my thing. So it's not even an argument of whether or not you want to live. So that's my comment on what Charles Barkley is saying there, and or in other individuals of that same ilk. Why go through all of this rigmarole when the jab itself doesn't seem to be doing what it was initially portrayed to do, and when the virus itself seems to be overplayed for the majority of the population? And I think the conversation, if anything, needs to turn away from getting jabbed to getting yourself healthy, fit, and in shape. Go work out, eat better, exercise. The healthier you are, the more least likely you are of developing some of these other, these pre-existing conditions that can turn an otherwise, at worst, mild, if noticeable disease whatsoever to, something deadly. It's those pre-existing conditions that do it. It's not the virus in and of itself. And so long as you are healthy, you don't have as much to fear. Not that you have nothing to fear, but to succumb to the worst of it and being completely healthy and young is an anomaly, and we need to stop treating it like it's the Black Plague. But that's my thoughts on, or my response to Charles Barkley. Shout out for trying to do what he feels as though is the right thing, but I feel as though it's definitely misguided. You're not being selfish, because again, the numbers don't prove it based upon what we know about those who are getting jabbed and their ability to still catch and spread it amongst others. Go ahead and check some of my other videos out on the topic. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Like this video, comment on this video. This is Bruce the Boss, and I'm out. Peace.